So it's come to that time of year again where all the rumours for the upcoming iPhones coming out this year are very plentiful. And one of the main rumours that I've seen with regards to the iPhone 14 has to do with the new processors that's going to be put inside these phones. Now, for those of you that are aware, and if you're not aware, you've obviously been living under a rock, that every single year Apple brings out a new iPhone with a brand new processor. Last year with the iPhone 13s, it was the A15 Bionic processor, and this year, theoretically, it will be the A16. There's been plenty of reports that only the iPhone 14 Pros are going to get this new A16 processor, and the new 14s will be stuck with last year's A15 Bionic. But there's also been another report that I've read that they are going to be renaming these new processors. So the A16 in the 14 Pros is going to be named the A16 Pro, and the A15 that's going to be put inside the iPhone 14s is going to be the A16. Now, that's just kind of, for me, that's kind of a way of just making people think that they're getting a new phone with a new processor, whereas you're just getting really the same processor under a different name with maybe a few minor tweaks to its performance. And personally for me, if they don't increase the price of the iPhone 14 with the A15, it's not going to be a big issue for me, because we all know that the A15 processor is probably one of the most powerful processors on the market, and the majority of people aren't going to be using these processors to their full potential. So the fact that an iPhone 14 with an A15 Bionic processor isn't going to be the end of the world for me, as long as they bring upgrades in other areas like the camera and the display and battery life and all that sort of stuff. So personally for me, not a big deal. And when it comes to the design of the iPhone 14, hopefully according to these renders that the iPhone 14 Pros are going to be ditching the notch finally in favour of this punch hole cutout, which will house the selfie camera and the Face ID sensors, which I'm hoping that's going to be true, because it's about time that Apple gets onto this more futuristic look for the smartphones rather than sticking to the notch that they've had since the iPhone 10 in 2017. And there's also reports of the camera module being bigger and Apple introducing a 48 megapixel sensor for the Pro models, making the phone a little bit thicker to make way for the bigger sensors, potentially better sensor shift stabilization as well. And again, that's something that Apple have been a bit slow catching up to the rest of the smartphone manufacturers, but that's Apple for you really. And then maybe the phones are going to be a little bit thicker to accommodate better battery life. Now, of course, the battery life between the 12 and the 13 was a big leap, and I'm hoping that the 14s will improve on that again. Of course, they're going to stick to the same flat edges that was introduced on the iPhone 12, same mute switch on the side, but an interesting render that I have seen is that they might change the volume buttons to the circular volume buttons like what was on the iPhone 4. Now, if they do that, that would be really cool, because I actually really liked those volume buttons. So, be interesting to see how this develops. It'll be interesting to see also if they introduce ProMotion 120Hz displays for the standard iPhone 14s. Of course, it was introduced on the 13 Pros, but not for the 13s. So it'll be interesting to see if they adopt it across the whole lineup this year. And then of course, another thing is out with the Mini and in with the Max. Now, they're looking at ditching the iPhone 14 Mini, which of course they had for the 13 Mini and the 12 Mini due to lack of sales and that sort of stuff, in favour of an iPhone 14 Max, which will share the same 6.7-inch display of the Pro Max models, but on a more affordable iPhone, which that would be the one that I go for if I do decide to upgrade to an iPhone 14 model this year. Haven't quite decided yet, but that would definitely be the one that I go for. Bigger phone, bigger screen, bigger battery, but with a slightly lower price tag than even the 14 Pro. And then of course, color options are probably going to be a little bit different on the 14 series. They'll probably swap out a couple of the colors from the 13s in favor of something different for the 14s, which they did between the 12 and 13. They swapped out one or two colors, and they did between the 11 and the 12. So don't be surprised if Apple do the same thing with the iPhone 14. Now, if you've got an iPhone 13 already and you're considering maybe upgrading to an iPhone 14, you might be a bit disappointed to know that the standard iPhone 14 is probably not going to be a huge upgrade over the standard 13, just slightly improved cameras and maybe a little bit bigger batteries. And then of course, if they keep that A15 Bionic processor, there's going to be no reason for you to upgrade from the 13 to the 14 as well. It's very much going to be an S year going from the 13 to 14, and hopefully it might be a bit more of a jump going from a 13 Pro to a 14 Pro, but I've not really been an advocate for upgrading annually to the newest iPhone. I don't think there's enough changes between each phone each year to warrant an upgrade. Now, if you have a 12 and you want to go to a 14, definitely. I mean, I had a 12 and the battery life on that was really not that good. So if I still had my 12, I'd definitely be upgrading from that to the iPhone 14. And then of course, with a new iPhone every year comes a new update to the software. This time it's going to be iOS 16, which is going to be announced on June the 6th. And that will just be an upgrade to notifications, widgets, a few new wallpapers and all that sort of stuff. They won't do a general overhaul of the look of how iOS is because they haven't for years, and I don't think they're going to start now. That's just something to look out for on June 6th, and then they will release it for people to be testing, and then they will do the full release probably when the iPhone 14 comes out. And then there's been reports of the price of the iPhone 14 going up, whether that's due to chip shortages and just demand for the parts for these new phones, or inflation or whatever. It's looking that the iPhone 14 Pro may start at $10.99 instead of $9.99, and the Pro Max starting at $11.99 instead of $10.99. So £100 increase in price for the Pros, but hopefully they will stick to the same $7.99 starting price for the iPhone 14, especially if they're not upgrading that processor and there's not going to be a huge amount of reasons to increase that price. But we all know what Apple are like with some of their changes that they make that people don't agree with, so let me know in the comments what your thoughts on that are. So that's just a few of the rumours that I've personally heard about the iPhone 14. Let me know in the comments if I've missed anything, if there's something you've heard that I may have not have shared in this video. And are you excited about the iPhone 14? I'm curious more than excited, but again, let me know in the comments what you think. And if you did enjoy this video, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future uploads. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.